Hello, and welcome to another Shuffle Junkies. We're still doing Shadowverse because I love Shadowverse. It's probably my favorite card game right now. And we're gonna look at a Highlander deck, specifically Dragon Highlander, specifically Bane, Omen of One deck using Dragoncraft. And boy, am I not looking forward to talking about the cards that are in the deck, because it's a singleton deck and there's a whole bunch of cards. Thankfully we save that for the end, so instead let's look at some games and talk about those games. Alright, well first up we got Shadowcraft. You know, Shadowcraft, you don't see it very often, but when you do, on turn 6 all of their crap evolves, or later on in the game you have 15 worth of damage coming from evolved ghosts, because Arcus and the new turn 6 evolve everything legendary are brutal. However, the deck is not super duper consistent, so it's not dominating. It's actually kind of rare to see it, and that's because if you cannot keep a board established, you just can't win. But if you can establish a board and you get those big swings in the mid and late game, it's a very powerful deck. For us, though, we have a lot of removal here, and we're going to make sure they don't have a deck. We're going to take advantage of our Servant of Disdain's ability to draw when it takes damage. And we're just going to hope that we draw our goddamn win condition, who is Bane, because his constant damage output is how we win this game. A very nice card these days is Estrella Beast. Anything that can't be targeted by your opponent's spells is very nice to have. There's a lot of targetable effects in the game right now. Alright, they're again trying to Grimory. Grimory is the turn 6 evolve everything card that I hate and fear, and it's why I make sure they don't have a board as best as I can. Honestly, kind of surprised they played the Grimory that early. Gonna go ahead and just, again, clearing is good. We want to make sure our opponent doesn't have a board state going into turn 6. Interesting that the waiting for response is recorded into the replay. Very strange. There's Cerberus, a nice turn 5 play when you're going to ideally evolve 3 things on turn 6. But again, we're not going to let that happen. How are we going to not let that happen? They're just going to concede. Damn it. I thought this was one of the longer games. Alright, Portalcraft. Portalcraft, I've really only seen the same deck over and over again. It has 2 versions of it. It might even have more than 2, but it's the new legendary. It's built around controlling the game, playing 2 indestructible amulets, and then just watching your opponent be obliterated. So that's no good. Ah, Bane. It's nice when you have it in your hand early on, so you know the game's going to go your way. So, we do have a solution in our deck for the problem that is those amulets, Destruction in White, Destruction in Black, or whatever they're called. And he's in the deck somewhere. The other solution is, because again this is a singleton deck, we can't really rely on drawing a specific card at any given point in time, is we're just going to try and outpace our opponents. If we can bring them down, there's enough Storm in the deck, there's enough big minions. Obviously Bane's going to be pinging away constantly. We want to try and leverage the damage we can do before they can combo out, because it is a late game combo. The amulets do cost 10 to start, and they get cheaper with each friendly death that happens. But you can't force it down that fast. Unfortunately, they did play Lashana, Omen of Destruction on turn 5, which is early enough that they will get steep discounts on the first amulet. But if we could zerg them down enough, often they'll just concede, assuming you have big storm finishes in hand, because what dragon deck doesn't have strong storm finishes in hand? Between Lindworm and Azidahaka, There's just so many big, beefy storm minions in the dragon arsenal that if we can get them down far enough, they might just assume that they've lost and concede. So that's the plan. Make it seem like we are easily capable of winning. So I'm going to trade in here. It can't take damage, that card, from effects. Oh, sorry, it can take damage from effects. It can't be destroyed from spells or effects. So I guess I could have left it out there. But regardless, there's the first problem, destruction in white. So we need to go quick. And thankfully, Canyon of the Dragons is a very powerful card, especially in this deck. It's powerful enough that even though it's 7, if you have it in your opening hands, you might want to consider holding on to it. And you're going to see why, not just in this match, but in another match in this video, we're going to really see just how powerful a combination this can be. So they're gonna use their various puppets to take care of the problem. And we're just gonna go ahead and play an enhanced Helbindi and get a whole mess of damage out. As you can see, our benefit for having one minion in play triggers before, and they conceded. God damn it! I forgot how many matches end in concessions. All right, Havencraft. Surely this opponent won't concede in the middle of the match without knowing if they have won or lost yet. So, let's get started. An abysmal opening hand here. I mean, it's not the worst. Disdainful Rendering is really a combo piece for a few other cards in the deck, so it's not a super useful thing right now. It can work in a pinch. I am happy to see some ramp, though. Star Phoenix is a pretty versatile card. We can yo-yo it back and forth. Alright, it's now a good hands. Knowing we have Marjorie, Omen of 1, that's all that matters. Our opponent appears to be playing a little bit of a Storm Amulet deck here, as far as I could tell. Nothing to worry about. That's an interesting move there, is trading the 2/1 into a 1/1. I would have personally gone for the damage. Let's start yo-yoing this stupid Phoenix. So Star Phoenix, as you could see on the screen, it already went away, but if you read it quick enough, every time I play a spell after it's dead, it will return to my hand. So if I play Blazing Breath, Zoe Arbiter of the Skies, Disdainful Rendering, any one of those will return that card to my hand. I want to ramp. I just want to skip right over turn 5 and go straight to Mercer Brain and get him on the field as quickly as possible. And we're just going to trade. Draw a card, get that in the deck as our big Storm minion, and also get our Phoenix back. There it is, Star Phoenix. And next turn, of course, we could play I Can't Believe It's Not Butter and get the ball rolling on this deck archetype. Oh, hell yeah, Canyon of the Dragons, here it is. You're gonna get to see that good combo I was talking about when Margarine here interacts with Canyon of the Drakes. Specifically, I Can't Believe It's Not Butter's leader effect. And there he goes. That's great. I'm happy they used the Seraphic Blade on him and not on my Canyon of the Dragons. Because once again, that frothy mixture of vegetable fats that makes margarine will synergize with this delightfully. So they're gonna kill this, and that's fine. I don't care about that at all. It's just gonna make a new one at the end of my turn. Okay, here's a very nice card to play. It's a 5/5, it makes it so I reduce my damage I receive, and it becomes a 7/7, and we get a bonus 5/5 on the table. So again, you could really see where the power comes from with Canyon of the Dragons. We all know it's a powerful card. It's just extra powerful when our singleton effect still goes off, regardless of whether or not we are generating another dragon at the end of return. Alright, Force of Dragon Newt, that's just a very lucky pull. We're gonna evolve this for the 7 damage, because we're really trying to push lethal quick. The benefit of this version of Marjorum's Singleton effect, and they can see it. I don't think I ever have a mission with this deck where, sorry, a match where they don't just concede. Alright. Dragoncraft on Dragoncraft. Maybe this time we could finish the goddamn match, right? Before they concede on us? Let's find out. I keep on talking quick because everyone just disconnects before we get to deliver the finishing blow, or before the game's even really decided, as you've seen. It's been a frustrating day of Shadowverse for me, because I've been trying to put together a little deck highlight, you know, for this deck, and just every match has been my opponent conceding. Well, let's see how this one goes, you know? So again, you know, we're gonna use our Star Phoenix. It's a nice card to keep in your opening hand because it means you don't have to worry about running out of minions. And while there's a decent amount of draw in this deck, specifically through card effects like Galua here of the 2 breaths can generate White Breath, which draws us 2 cards. Kaiza, Radical Gourmand, Nourishing Fare gives us card draw. The 2/1 that died generates Dragon's Nest, which is draw, so like a lot of draw comes from our minions. So a bad luck run, some RNGesus curse work, can leave us in a sticky situation. So having something like our Star Phoenix means we can count on getting him back. We don't have to worry about running out of minions. And that means Marjoram has something to trigger off of. Can we stop? I don't want to see his effect anymore. There we go. And as you can see, evolving the Horsey, a nice move. Or not even evolving the Horsey, just playing the Horsey. They're forced to trade into it. They can't use spells. It's a pretty nice move. I'm not gonna bother with an evolution here. It's worst case scenario 2 damage. I'd rather hold on to those evolution points for a little bit later. Also, White Frost Whisper we knew was going to be a problem if we traded into a minion, so I figured, you know, why waste an evolution point? We know what's going to happen. So this is a tricky one. Our opponent does have a relatively scary card behind a ward, and we don't have a way to prevent that from happening. Now, I should have evolved and traded into the 1/1. That's a misplay on my part. That would have prevented them from saving damage. I could have forced them to use the 3/5 for the damage, or even the effect of their minion there. We're gonna go ahead and get a Black Breath for the future. And we're also gonna do some careful trading here, because we don't want to lose our Singleton benefits. There we go. That 7/2 will become a 9/4. And it'll just ping them. Delightful. We are going to mill because we forgot about our Star Phoenix. That's the one thing you gotta keep in mind. If you're playing a relatively slow game and you have a lot of cards in your hand, you have to keep count for when your Star Phoenix is going to return and force a mill. So we lost Ozzy Dahaka. Not a good card to mill at this point in the game, but we do have Lyria here as a dedicated Proto-Bahamut pull, basically. Because Proto-Bahamut is one of the best cards to play if you're going to be running a Singleton deck. So having anything that could tutor Proto-Bahamut into your hand is a great benefit to have. As you can see, we're just going to go ahead and let that can't be damaged effect work for us. And then we're going to play Proto-Bahamut. And this is why Proto-Bahamut is such a powerful card in the Singleton format. An 8/8 becomes a 9/9. It clears your board of anything with 3 or less health, and it does 1 damage. And then they concede because they don't have an answer to the 10/10. But Chris, I hear you say, what about the top of the meta? What about that monster, Bloodfeast Bat? Well, let's talk about Bloodfeast Bat in what will be a very short game. Kind of a trend we've been having with this deck. So I'm gonna hold on to Zoe. It's essentially a 1-cost cycle. We're gonna get it out of our hand and immediately draw a card. We're not gonna play it on our first turn though. We're gonna get Goblin on the table quick. And we have I Can't Believe It's Not the Omen of One, which is the most important card to pull. If ever you're playing this game and it's turn 8 and you haven't pulled Marjoram, you know you're gonna have some trouble. Zoe, like I said, it's just a cycle, so don't feel like you need to play that early. In fact, the thinner your deck, the better. Because you want to pull that, the generated card, the 10-cost Storm minion, you want to pull that when you have 10 mana, so weeding your deck out a little bit, it's pretty good. Anyway, the solution to Darkfeast, Bloodfeasty, Batty Bat Bat, if you haven't picked up already, is to just go ham on their face. You want to ignore their board unless it's a significant threat, and you just want to bash their face in, because the less health they have, the less options they have going forward. So getting them under 10 this early means they can't really play a lot of their cards, because a lot of their cards injure themselves. You know, they can't remove my 4/5 with spells, and those spells injure themselves, and that's why they concede. We also had Satunga here for that amulet that heals them for a whole bunch that they always pair with their legendary. So as you can see, it's a pretty fun deck. It's not going to carry you very far in the current meta. You are going to run into situations where you just don't draw cards you need, and that's the problem with a Highlander deck, is consistency, so you're going to run into that problem. But I think the fun of the deck more than makes up for that. So let's talk about the deck a little bit. A lot of these cards are just gonna fly right by, like Goblin, you know? It's a single 1/2 1-drop. You just need cheap minions to keep you in the game, and that's what he's for. That's why he's in the deck. Blazing Breath, a very cheap early game removal spell. It's very handy. We actually have ways of generating more of these in the deck. Stormborn Wings is, let's say it's in the late game, you have Hatchling in your hand or something, this will turn that into a Windblast Dragon, which is a 5/5 with Storm, which is way better than a 2/2 in the late game. Disdainful Rendering is mostly here to trigger off of a couple of cards that have damage self-effects, but it's also a useful thing for clearing out some early game threats. So, you know, you do 1 damage to your minion, you do 3 damage to an enemy minion. It's pretty handy to have. Lyria is basically dedicated to pulling Bahamut, Proto-Bahamut, and that's why she's in the deck. End of sentence. That's why she's here. So pull Proto-Bahamut. She's also not a bad target for Marjoram's effect. I can't believe it's not a 2/2 buff at the end of your turn, because the first time she takes damage, it's reduced to 0. So it's a nice little warded, shieldy thingy. Seraphic Blade's here to take care of basically other combo decks. So Tenko, you have Seraphic Blade ready. Anything that runs destructible amulets is nice to have. It's also good for the late game removal of huge minions. And if you're playing something like Blood, you hold onto it in your opening hand, it takes care of early game threats. Genesis of Legend turns little minions into Bane minions, which is very handy in the early game, so it's a nice thing to keep in your opening hand. Fierce Dragon Newt gets you additional Blazing Breaths. It's Ramp. Done. This generates a Dragon's Nest, which heals and draws cards, and we love draw in this deck. Draw's very handy. And the 2/1 stats are pretty nice, unless you're up against Runecraft. Runecraft have so many ways to ping 1 health minions that it's kind of a bust, but you still get that amulet, and that's what you have it in the deck for. White Frost Dragon Newt has one of the best removals in Dragoncraft in the form of White Frost Whisper. 2 play point spell, kill anything that's damaged. It's easy to ping as Dragoncraft, especially with this deck. Hatchling, I usually just play it as a 2/2. I don't think I've ever played its choose effect, but you can get a 5/7 ward or a 6/2 can't be attacked minion that does damage to all other followers at the end of the turn. So another way to combo out with stuff like the Disdain group of cards. Servant of Disdain draws a card when it takes damage and doesn't die. We have Dragon Oracle, just a ramp. Ramp is very handy in this deck. Oh god, so many cards. Pure Heart Singer, draw, done. It draws on play, it draws when it dies. Kai'Sa, Radical Gourmand, is here basically just so you can have Nourishing Fare to heal and draw, or Flaming Fare for removal and damage of your opponent's face. It's a situational card, you know, choose the one that seems like it's going to be having the most impact. Moon and Sun, again, similar to, as we were talking about with the Star Phoenix, it's a way of making sure you have a minion at any given point in time. Because unless they banish it, it's always coming back. Craving Splendor, I traditionally use this as removal, but if you have Ozzy Dahaka down to 7 and it's turn 10, or you have a big minion but you don't quite have enough damage to win, this is how you get that finishing blow in. And again, it pairs well with Majerba, because he's buffing stuff 2/2, which means you have more chances to hit something with 5 or more health. We talked about Estrella Beast. It's basically a cheap early game minion that can't be targeted by spells, and once it gets buffed by Majerba, it gets better and better. We talked enough about Star Phoenix. It's just a way to make sure you have a minion. Dragon Cleaver Roy, very nice 2/2 that costs 3. You could either get some ramp out of it with Dragon Life, or you can get some removal and a 3 damage spell, Dragon Strife Blade. If your opponent is a Dragoncraft player, it does 6 damage to those minions, so pretty handy dandy. Pugilist Princess is basically, again, just here to get bigger. It has a clash effect where it gains +1/+1, which is a nice thing to have when you have Majerba's effect. And it has Rush. Rush is nice because it makes up for being out of evolution points and allows you to save evolution points. Force the Dragonute is a board clear. It's either going to do 1 damage to everybody or 2 damage to everybody. And because we have so much ramp, you're often able to get the 2 damage effect. It's a very handy card to have in the deck, especially with Bloodcraft and Forestcraft having relatively low health minions. Dragon Warrior, he's here as a 2-for-1 evolution trade. You trade him into a minion, and you also deal 3 damage to another minion with the evolution effect. It's nice to have those kind of things. Oh, sweet, we're almost at the end of the deck. Basilisk Rider is a great sticky minion. He's a 2/2 that costs 4, which is terrible stats, but he has Bane, and when he dies, you get a 1/1 with Bane. So it's great for removing bigger threats. It's just a very annoying card for your opponent. Pyreworm Commander gets you a Blazing Breath. Evolve gets you a Lightning Blast, which is another way to remove things that you can't destroy. So this is another solution. So if you're against Portalcraft, hold on to Pyreworm and your opening hand. The other option is to hold on to Satungar. He's another way to banish amulets. So if you're up against Portal, Pyreworm, Satungar. Those are the 2 cards you want to try and mulligan for, because that's how you prevent their win condition. Hellbindi is great, as you saw in one of those matches. You play her on turn 7. It will deal 2 damage twice. It'll get buffed by the butter, and it'll deal additional 2 damage via the butter. So, great card for a post-butter turn. Love it. Great card. Divine Retribution, single target removal. It specifically targets the biggest one. Handy dandy. Play it on turn 8, you do an additional 3 damage. Galua of 2 Breaths, as we talked about earlier. You get some draw, you get some removal. This won't help you against Portalcraft's indestructible amulets, but will help you against giant threat decks, of which there are plenty in the game. True Dragon, it's either going to ramp for you and take a little bit of damage to itself, or if you play it later, it's going to prevent 2 damage to your face. And because it does it based on the source, if you were to hit by Giant Chimera, it would do no damage, because that 2 damage reduction happens for the whole turn. for the whole moment that it happens. So it's a very useful ability. Omen of Disdain. It's a great target for that 1-cost spell we talked about earlier. And you have, a couple other ways to deal 1 damage to things in the deck, as we saw. And it's just a nice card to have, especially for trades, It's going to be getting +2/+2 at the end of each turn. Your opponent's going to trade into it. If they require more than 1 minion to trade into it, you get multiple charges of her effect off, which is nice. We already talked about Satungar. Keep it for Portalcraft in your opening hand. And then Marjoram, Omen of Butter, is the whole deal here. You need to have a deck that has only 1 copy of every card except for him. You could have 3 of him. And then the effect is, at the end of your turn, if you have 1 minion in play, it gets +2/+2. You deal 2 damage to a minion on the table on your opponent's side, and you do 2 damage to their face. So it's just a countdown clock to victory once he's played. It's great. I love it. Adramalamalek is here almost exclusively for the draw. I don't think I've ever played him as a minion, and that's because while there are a lot of non-minion things, there's only 11 of them in total, so the best you're looking at is an 11/6. In reality, you're looking at like a 4/6, a 5/6, a 6/6, which for 7 isn't really worth it. You could remove 1 minion using him, but really we're here for the draw. That's why he's in the deck. He draws us cards. Cane of the Dragons. Great card. Wonderful. It works amazing in this deck. Totally go for it. Proto Bahamut, as we saw, amazing. It's a board clear. It's a ping. It's a great target for the butter. It's a great card here in this deck. Azi Dahaka is one of our big finishers, and if it doesn't, kill him, it just gets into 8-10 form, and then the additional 2 damage is usually enough to cap him off over the course of the game. So Azi Dahaka is pretty nice, and usually when you're playing him, he's going to cost 8 or 7, depending on if you went first or second, so pretty nice card. And then Zoe. Zoe's just another nice finisher to have. It's a cycle if you play the accelerate cost, and you don't have to worry about losing this from your hand. So if you have a Zoe, throw it in the deck. And really, that's the benefit of Butter here. The I Can't Believe It's Not Butter card, if you drew 1 or 2 of these in your pack openings, craft a 3rd, and what you end up having is a perfect way to build decks for all of those one-off legendaries you have, Like, I only have 1 White Frost Dragonute. I only have 1 Azi Dahaka. I only have 1 Proto Bahamut. I only have 1 Adramalamalek. I basically just made this deck so I could put all of my stupid one-off legendaries in a deck and have it work and make sense. So if you have a bunch of single legendaries and you're like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't make a great deck with this. Build a Highlander deck, Make a singleton format deck around Butterman and throw all your one-off legendaries in there. Throw all your one-off gold cards in there. Put your best silvers and your best bronzes in there. And then you end up with a pretty fun deck to play. It's never going to be top tier, or it might be, if we get more support for the Highlander format in the future. But for the time being, it's a great way to find a use for all those one-off legendaries you have, and you'll have a great time doing it. I love playing my Highland Dragon deck. I love playing my Highland Haven deck. And one day I'm going to love playing my Highland Sword deck when I put enough draw in here to make the deck actually friggin' work for a change. And I know I said we're going to look at 2020, the silly meme prophetess deck, but I'm going to be honest with you, I have yet to make this deck actually win games reliably. So one day when I make this deck work, we'll take a look at it. It'll probably be an unlimited deck that we make work well. But for now, I hope you enjoyed seeing a Highlander Dragon deck. We're going to look at a Highlander Haven deck, we're going to look at a Highlander Sword deck, and if you want to see other types of Highlander decks from other classes, comment below. Let me know what kind of decks you want to see me put the Butterman into, and I'll do it for you, and we'll check it out together. Well, alright. Drop a like if you liked it, subscribe for more if you want to see more, and as always... I don't have a sign-off, do I? Damn it. Bye, I guess. Oh, hey, sometimes I stream the Shadowverse, so check us out on Twitch. Shake the Box on Twitch. There you go, that's our sign-off. Bye!